So hey, it's Sunwoo here, and this is a little glimpse into what I've been doing to analyze this specific paper. Um, so obviously I'm writing a little research summary for y'all for this paper, but even if you aren't directing a club like me, I still suggest you write a little bit, or like if you're going through a paper that you really need to understand thoroughly, I suggest that you have the doc open and write your own interpretations and your understanding of the paper. I've already done the introduction and the materials and methods. So, like, everyone says the heart of the paper is in the discussion and the results. And that's true. And if you're honestly, for most of the papers that you read, the only things you have to do is read the title, the abstract, a couple paragraphs from the introduction, and then the conclusion. You can choose to read like, what do you say? You can choose to read like the headings for the subsections of the results, but nothing more than that, honestly, if you're just skimming through a paper. Well, now for the purposes of this research club, we need to understand all of these papers thoroughly because we are given 2 weeks for each of the papers. And if you want to have a deep discussion over the papers, might as well know a lot about it. So, but whatever you do, but whatever you do, I suggest that you start off by, doing what I just said, skimming over the paper and just looking through the conclusions and the abstract. But after that, you can decide to go more in depth. Um, just try to read one by one. I know a lot of people, it's a common misconception that you can skip around and that's more efficient. But to me, personally, just going from top to bottom the way the research paper was structured is the best way to go about reading a research paper if you're going in depth. And that's specifically true because you can't understand the results unless you have a good knowledge of all the jargon that's represented in the materials and methods. So right now, I have a basic summary of the materials and methods out here, and all the jargon, most of the jargon comes from the methodology that comes from the PET scanning, for this specific paper, and um, in my situation, what I usually do is I open up ChatGPT, and as you can see here, I started off with a paragraph that I did not understand at all. This specific paragraph, and I said, put this in layman's terms. Um, Obviously, ChatGPT only has access to this one paragraph that I feed to it, so it might not have the whole context of the paper. However, it is able to give a pretty. I guess it's able to give you some sort of footing to step on, so you can analyze that paragraph that you didn't understand a little bit more clearly now. And I had a specific question over a specific equation that they used. Um, it was a type of generalized estimating equation, and I didn't know what that was at all when I first went into it. But if it really depends on the type of questions you ask to ChatGPT. So once you give it the paragraph, then you can start asking more specific questions based on the specific methodologies that are coming up in that paragraph. So I asked, what is SPM5? And it can give me a little bit of context on what SPM5 is and how it relates to the methodology presented in this paragraph. And then I asked about the GEE, or the generalized estimating equation. And then it gave me a little feedback on that too. And in cases like these, I feel like ChatGPT is such an incredibly useful tool. Um, Obviously, you can't just ask ChatGPT to put the entire research paper in its own terms. Then you're not really learning anything because you're not putting that effort in. But for like paragraphs that you don't understand at all, or like completely new concepts, like to me, the GEE was completely new, then you can always ask ChatGPT and other AI chatbots, and they can be a very good resource to you. It's almost like just having a professor that knows everything next to you just to help you out a little bit. Um, and yeah, just right now I'm going through all the paragraphs one by one, just reading down the research paper. This research paper isn't that long, so it's only taken me around an hour to get finish up the materials and methods. Obviously, I'm writing this for y'all, so I'm putting in a little more effort. If you're a member of the club and you're just reading for yourself, you don't have to do all that. If you're just a random student that's wanting to learn more about dopamine and decision making, and you want to get deep into this research paper, you don't have to do this much, annotations or summarizing. You can just write down in bullet points even what you learn, what you understand, and a summary of each of the paragraphs. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Hopefully I can get this out to y'all by tonight, because today's Wednesday, and I promised it to y'all by tonight. But yeah, hopefully this helped a little bit.